Good morning, everyone. I'm Peter Armentrout. I'm presently the interim chair of the Department of Chemistry, and it's a real pleasure to have all of you join us for this really important occasion. I'd like to welcome President Henry B. Eyring, the Eyring family in general. Many of you are here, I know. Elder Dale G. Randall of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and his wife. The Semnani family, President Randall, Vice Provost Trappa, Dean Sandick, and all of the esteemed guests here today. So we gather here today in the Department of Chemistry with really immense pleasure and a deep sense of honor. We're here to celebrate and commemorate the extraordinary legacy of a really true pioneer in our field, Dr. Henry Eyring. Dr. Eyring's contributions to theoretical chemistry have fundamentally shaped our understanding of chemical kinetics, and I know that for a fact because I do chemical kinetics and I use some of his principles all the time. His groundbreaking work, particularly developing absolute rate theory, which I still use, and the Eyring equation, has left an indelible mark on science. But the really interesting thing, I think, about Henry Eyring is that beyond these scientific achievements, he was also known for his passion for education, his infectious enthusiasm for discovery of all sorts, and his unique ability to bridge the realms of science and profound philosophical thought. His time in these walls, in particular just down the hall there, helped establish a research program that continues to inspire and influence scientists today, not only in the chemistry department, but throughout the university. Today, we unveil a statue that serves not only as a tribute to his brilliance, but also a lasting reminder of the values that he embodied: intellectual curiosity, unwavering dedication, and a profound respect for the pursuit of knowledge. This statue will stand as a symbol of inspiration for generations of students and researchers who will walk through these halls daily, all day long, reminding them of the heights that can be reached through dedication and passion. We are incredibly grateful to everyone who has made this dedication possible, including the members of the Eyring family, the Semnani family, and incredible artists that have contributed to this. We are so glad that you are here to share this special occasion with our department. And at this point, let me introduce President Taylor Randall.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks for your leadership of this incredible department, which continues to be one of the top in the country this day. And I, as well, would like to welcome you, President Eyring, Elder Renland, former Governor Herbert. We're both 17s. We joke about that. We've been trying to get with President Nelson. We've got the 17th governor, the 17th president, and the 17th prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We thought we ought to get a picture one of these days if we could. So far, we're just superimposing different pictures with Photoshop, aren't we? But anyway, it's a remarkable day. For those of you who don't know, we are celebrating the 175th anniversary of the founding of the University of Utah. It was founded in a small house across from West High School with a founding contribution of about $8,000. Brigham Young University was the largest donor at $1,200. Today, that would be about $50,000, I think, if the economists and the inflation calculations are right, which would get us a scholarship. But anyway, that got him the founding of a university. This university has been on a remarkable trajectory ever since. There have been a number of inflection points in that history. Certainly, when we moved from downtown Salt Lake up to here on the hill and were granted some of the government land. But another one of those inflection points was when Henry Eyring came to the University of Utah. It was post-World War II, and the United States was in the process of trying to define how it would do research in the Cold War era. And in fact, today, even the announcements that have been made all week about national science funding and National Institutes of Health funding, that is questioning the fundamental agreement that was made when Henry Eyring arrived at the University of Utah. He marked the founding of a graduate school that would begin to do federally funded research, growing from almost nothing. And in fact, we received, just a few years later, the very first National Institute of Health grant granted in the entire country, in large part due to a graduate school that was founded by Henry Eyring. Today, his accomplishments, particularly in what he started in the area of STEM, today, the University of Utah produces well over 50% of all the graduate and undergraduate STEM students in the entire state of Utah. And I think you can trace that all back to 1946. So as you look at the economy of the state of Utah, and you've already articulated his incredible scientific endeavors, the trajectory he set us on was truly amazing. May I also speak to another contribution that I don't think is often mentioned. This community was founded by a set of refugee saints who came here in 1847. It's not lost on all of us here at the University of Utah that they quickly started a university, caring deeply about knowledge. And if you read some of those founding documents, they based it on 3 principles: that this would be a fount of discovering knowledge, that it would be inexpensive, and that individuals would be able to come here, and it would be also part of a prosperous community. One of the remarkable things that Henry Eyring did was always reconcile the notion that faith and science go hand in hand. In his mind, there was never, ever a conflict. There may have been moments where we had to wait in patience until both of us could see eye to eye, but one of the interesting things as a president of a university, when I talk to others who often speak of the conflict between faith and science, I look back to Dr. Henry Eyring and say, he is the one that established its unity, recognizing that we would be traveling different paths to truth, but always with the confidence that those 2 truths would be reconciled in the end. And for that legacy, I think we are all truly grateful, because it welcomes individuals of non-faith and faith alike to come here to a university to actually discover truth. So anyway, I hope that today will be a remarkable celebration of Dr. Eyring's legacy. We are expanding with great speed, scientific discovery on this campus. If you parked to the north, you will see much construction on new science buildings under the leadership of Dr. Trapa and now Dr. Sandick. We're so glad that you're here, and you guys get to sweep the floors after the construction gets done. That will be exciting to have them there. But we're grateful for the Eyring legacy, grateful for the Eyring family for joining us here today. And with that, I would love to turn the time over to Dr. Khosrow Semnani, one of our incredible graduates who was influenced deeply by Dr. Eyring. Khos.
Thank you very much, President Randall. It's an honor to be here. And just as a matter of background, we had a wonderful day yesterday. We had the Summit for Kindness at the university with the presence of the President Randall. And it was a big day for me. But I don't know, I'm a lot more nervous today, and this is bigger than anything I've already attended. I'm just being very frank with you. Please bear with me if I'm not quiet. Sometimes I don't make sense, please. I'm from Iran. I came here in 1968. And through all these years, I've had several people that always created or formed my life, directed my life, gave me direction. Among which was my grandma, first one, who we have a clinic named in her name, and my grandfather towards mother, who was also, he was a businessman, but his biggest thing that stays in my mind is the fact that he provided, back in the days, I would say in 30s and 40s, he would deliver rice, sugar, and oil two people who needed it back then on the back of a donkey in the small town that they lived. He did it in the dark. His directions was take this food to the house of some people in the dark that nobody knows that they have received this help from somebody else. And he was another guiding light in my life. The other guiding light that I had, and I always respected that, is my own father. And he was a hardworking man. And I learned that working hard always pays off in one form or the other. And what was interesting is he was an orphan. And he was brought in and helped out, and he became a truck driver for a while. And by the time that he passed away, he had factories of ice in Iran, and he had much money, I should say. And he raised kids, and he had 5 wives, incidentally. And but we were all successful in one form or the other. And the other person who really influenced my life after I come to the United States was Dr. Eyring. These are the people that they were guiding lights in my life. And I didn't work with Dr. Eyring very, very long. I worked with him for only about a year and a half. I was not his PhD student. I just worked for him. He gave me $1.35 an hour. And Mary Lou, just down this hall here, she gave me a check every 2 weeks, and life was good. But aside from the money, the way he influenced my life, and I want to share that with you, that's why I'm here today. He was a very inquisitive guy, But also he was a very kind man in many ways, He did not at all, at any time that I know, he ever stopped or stopped promoting kindness in a way that I really learned from him. And one of the stories that I later learned, he picked up that kindness from a 4th grade teacher that came to visit him when he was sick at home. And she came from school to visit him at the house to tell him that he wishes him well, and she misses him at the class in the 4th grade. He was probably 10, 11 years old. And he had told that story to me earlier. And I really admired him because he practiced that with me. He gave me the chance to work with him, and he gave me a recommendation to work for Kennecott. That was the start of my life in my profession. And my wife is here, and she knows every time I talked about the important people in my life, Dr. Eyring is one of them. And today, the reason I'm here, I feel better because I knew this building was here, but I never really did anything that I could have done for him and what he did for me, both in teaching me kindness, but also helping me to move up the ladder, as whatever you call it in this country. And I felt that it's time for me to do something, and I was honored to work with President Randall, and also Peter as well, and others, to talk about this issue. And eventually I got a hold of Brett Wright, who's a good friend of mine. I know him from Eagle Mountain, and he's the owner and operator of Metal Arts Foundry, to create this statue with the permission of Dr. Eyring's family. I really am honored to be here, and I feel much better because I've finally done something for somebody who was so very important in my life. And I'm delighted to be with you, and thank you very much for that. I do have a couple of things to share with you. The office that I worked is right here in that lab. That door you can see right from here, just from that side. You can see it. I was in that lab. And I spent not only working for him, but late at night he would come over and talk to me about Persian language. It had nothing to do with chemistry, just Persian language. And why the word for paradise, is it Zand, which is a language spoken back then, or Sanskrit, or Avesta, any of those. He was asking me, and I really didn't know what I was talking about. I was 18, but I had familiarity with the languages a little bit because of where I was born. So he would just come and sit down and grab a stool and sit down with me. He said, this is 9 o'clock at night. He would stay there until 10 o'clock while I was working. He was just talking to me. And I wasn't realizing that how much those talks really affected my life, those conversations. And in that period, Ted Eyring as well, I remember he would walk right down this hall from time to time. I'd see him. He was a good-looking guy. I remember him. Back then, 50 years ago, he had dark hair and all that. So it was just a wonderful experience being here. And Mary Lou she was a wonderful lady. And today, I want to thank all of you that you've been here. And I want to thank Brett as well, Brett Wright and Mark, who's a designer. We had you can talk about that later yourself, about why we decided its posture. Of course, the family decided on that. And this is a big moment for me. And I really want to thank all of the people, especially the University of Utah under your leadership, Dr. Randall, and the family to allow me to do this. This is a big thing for me to do. I want to tell you how much I'm appreciative of your graciousness and your charity to me. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. In the memory of Dr. Eyring, I looked around at some of his students, and there was a student in San Francisco who's still alive, a good friend of mine, but he couldn't travel because of his age, I think. But I've asked his brother, who also works for the University of Utah, to join us, Dr. Ghandehair, to come and say just a few words as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Semnani, for your generous contribution to the University of Utah. I'm Hamid, Ghandehair, Professor and Chair of Molecular Pharmaceutics here at the U and Professor of Biomedical Engineering. I'm here on behalf of my brother, Mohammad Hossein Ghandehair, who was Dr. Eyring's PhD student in the late 1960s and also an associate of Dr. Eyring in the early 70s after he received his PhD. As Mr. Semnani mentioned, Mohammad is currently having some family obligations. He couldn't make it here, so he sent me a note that I would like to read to you verbatim. Mohammad says, my thanks to my friend and colleague, Mr. Khosrow Semnani, for giving me a few minutes to share my thoughts and joy of having met and worked in the late Professor Henry Eyring's group. We both worked in Dr. Eyring's group, that means Mr. Semnani and Mo. They both worked in Henry Eyring's group in the late 1960s. Mohammad says I received a PhD under Henry Eyring in 1970, back to my home country in Iran, and returned to the lab in 1973 before getting a job in Research Park. Henry Eyring taught us to work hard as he did himself. He was very kind and understanding, having had PhD students and several senior associates in his group. I cannot tell you how lucky I felt that Henry Eyring accepted me in his group with the help of one of his senior associates at the time, Dr. Terrell Anderson. Some of you might remember Dr. Terry Anderson. Henry Eyring was in his office 5.5 days a week. He taught his absolute rate theory class on Saturday morning, sometimes right after the Saturday morning seminars. And this is Saturday morning remembering Henry Eyring. We learned a lot from him, not only the science, but also his humanity and kindness. He was praised by his students as being very kind and easy to relate to. He was very energetic. I'm sure some of you have heard of him jumping on his desk from the floor when he was much younger than the time I met him. At the time my brother was with Henry Eyring. Henry Eyring was about 73 years old. He famously held an annual foot race with his students and others in the office who wished to join the race. He worked very hard to beat us in the race, and we did take the difference in age into account, but not by much. He gave it all trying to win the race. In parentheses, this is not from Mo, but as you are probably familiar, there is a chapter on Dr. Eyring that describes his life and his faith. And in that chapter, there's actually a picture of my brother and Henry Eyring and 2 other students that are running in the stadium right here. So you might want to check that out. Mo continues to say, as Dr. Eyring students, we could not have asked for a better environment and very friendly encounter with Dr. Eyring on a daily basis, end quote. In addition to the comments of my brother, I just want to take a few seconds to really appreciate the Semnani Foundation, appreciate the chemistry department. When I come to this building, it reminds me of many, many memories of many, many classes, including the transition theory that Dr. Eyring had established, and also specifically to Dr. Eyring for his contributions to science and humanity. Thank you.
One of the moments we've all waited for. We're now going to do the unveiling, and then we'll hear from Henry B. Eyring. So if I could invite President Taylor, Khosrow Semnani, pardon, up. Let's lead us. It's wrapped around here a couple of times so that students didn't steal the staff. Volunteers. Good point.
Okay. We have a bit of a microphone. Hello, testing.
So he's bringing one up.
Okay, great.
Hello? I am grateful beyond words for all that's been said and all that has been done. I'd like to use the moment to, in addition to say thank you, to speak about Henry Eyring. You've already heard the reasons he has touched people's lives. And I'm not qualified to describe how he has changed science and our understanding of the world. But I am in a peculiarly advantageous position to tell you something of who he was. And interestingly enough, it seems odd to say, there's really one word that describes him: love. He had a passion for some things, more than anyone perhaps that I've ever known. And the passion sprung from his faith. Dad had a problem that he never could tell when he was talking about God. I remember being in a meeting he was the president of the American Chemical Society and a famous person, and he gave a lecture, and after it was over, I said, "Dad, you bore your testimony." He said, "Did I?" To him, the idea of a divine creator who literally was his father, that was real to him. So much so that I used to worry about him, that he wouldn't know when it was appropriate, because to him, it was always appropriate. He had a feeling of being loved. And that's why you've heard the praise being given to him. He felt loved, and so he loved. And it's interesting, if you want to tell the story of his life, it's a story of love. You have to start with, actually, wherever you want to start. But his father raised him as if he was the most wonderful person in the world. And he did the same thing for others. Now you'd say, what's that got to do with the chemistry building? Well, what it was he loved chemistry. He loved chemistry so much that my mother often felt that she had one rival for his affection, and that was chemistry. He fell in love with chemistry. He thought about it night and day. And to him, it was a delight. And he passed that on to me. We had a house where everybody else in the neighborhood had a ping pong table or something. We had blackboards. And I went to this university as a physics student, and my father, every night I'd come home and he'd said, "Well, Hal, let's work the problems that I had to." And I'd say, "Well, just give me the equations." And no, let's develop it from first principles. And I thought, oh dear, I want to go play basketball. I want to do something, but no, let's develop it from first principles. And he'd go back to the root of things. And interestingly, his faith was the same way. He was interesting that he would, as you've heard him say, he saw no, he figured science and God was, he always laughed, in fact. I heard him give a talk as a president of the American Chemical Society. I forget, it was in New York or somewhere. And he said in the middle of it, he was explaining one of his theories, and he said, "Oh, God's saying, I got it, Henry, you got it wrong again." He really saw himself as a person, not only no conflict with religion, but really a feeling that he was a child of God, and that he was a learner, and that God was the great creator and really understood chemistry, really understood everything. I sometimes said, "Dad, why don't you pray and have him tell you something?" And he said, it wouldn't help, I wouldn't understand it. He's but he, it was interesting. I would just say this about him. This tribute that you've heard today to him, he saw himself as a person whose main purpose was to help people, that's what God would want him to do. And so one of the things the chemists in the room will smile is that he published 600 papers, scientific papers, most of them with postdocs or his other graduate students, and always a group. He always had and so there'd be the list on the paper when it was published, and his name was always last. And that was not just a clever thing. That was really how he felt. He felt what he was doing was lifting other people. I remember one time one of his PhD, who had just received his PhD, was talking to Dad and saying, you know, I don't know who I'll honor with my, what job I'll take. And I listened to that and I thought, what in the world? I knew that Dad had worked night and day to get that fellow through. And so when he went away, I said, Dad, why didn't you tell him? And he said, oh, Hal, my job is to build him up. Life will break him down. That kind of feeling of his, he was a builder. He came here from Princeton and had the most wonderful situation there, was already internationally famous with his work. And A. Ray Open, a friend of his, who was a physicist, became the president of the University of Utah. And there was no graduate school at all. Can you believe? In one of the great science universities, there was no graduate school at all. And so A. Ray Olfen said, I think what I'll do is I'll get Henry Eyring to come. So he offered Dad, who was as happy as anybody can be, and Princeton was a great place to be. He offered Dad to be the founding dean of the graduate school at the University of Utah. And he came home and he told my mother, he'd been offered that opportunity. What do you think I should do? And she said, well, Henry, make up your own mind. So he sent a message back saying, we're not coming. And that night at dinner, I was there, and Hardin, I think, would remember this too, that my mother said, well, what did you do? And she said, I turned it down. She left the dinner table and went out of the room. I remember sitting there eating my food. What is a strange thing going on? And she came back. And then she put a letter sealed in front of him at the dinner table. And he reached to open it. She says, don't you touch that. You open that at your laboratory tomorrow at the Frick Chemical Laboratory. You open it tomorrow morning. I thought, what's that? Now, I do not have the letter. They tell me that Hardin tells me he thinks that he's seen the letter, but it essentially said, Henry, you liar. you promised me that if you ever got the chance to take me back to the university, to Utah, you would do it. And he said, Mildred, why didn't you tell me? She said, you're supposed to remember. And he got right on, and he called A. Ray Olpin and said, I'm coming. I'm coming. Okay. That's just not a funny story. That's what the man was like. To do, his wife's feelings matter more than his career. And he came to the University of Utah. And the people at Princeton said, Henry, you can't go out there in the desert. There's no culture. And he reportedly said, oh, culture is where I hang my hat. And he came back here, and you'd say, now, if you're the first, you're opening the, whatever it is, the graduate school, what would you do? You should have seen his office in the Park Building. He was the dean, the great, he's the dean of the blackboards. He took all the furniture out, blackboards, and then brought in chairs. And this picture, this is him. Do you see the, when I look at this, I cry. I'm glad I can't see it, because that smile is the smile he always had when he taught about chemistry. And he was trying to lift people. That's what he did. And so to me, yeah, I'm glad I can't see it, because I would cry. And President Kimball said to me one time, well, I'll leave that story out. Well, let's go on. He came to the University of Utah, and instead of being the great high and mighty dean, he had a lab going of students and publishing papers and teaching. In fact, if anyone asked for some administrative thing, he'd say, see my secretary. And then what he was doing is he was lifting people and lifting them in their capacities to do a thing that he loved so much that he dreamt about it. I honestly believe he had dreams of potential barriers with molecules. In fact, he talked about that. He did some of his work where in the night he would think about it. So I guess my theme is to say, if I could, I would paint for you a picture of love and just tremendous devotion, both to science and to doing work, but also in lifting people around him. And I wish I could somehow make it so that when people see this, they'll see that. It's not the honors. It wasn't to him. When I was a boy growing up, the phone would ring right at the time they were announcing the Nobel. 2 or 3 times. He was nominated 3 or 4 times. And I would answer the phone and say, hello, this is Sweden. We want an interview with your father, because the assumption he would win. He never won. But you got to know what kind of a man he was. That's the smile that you see there. He was in Stockholm with the president of the Swedish Academy, who was himself a chemist. And the King of Sweden, I believe, was standing there. And the president asked him, Henry, they were friends. He was himself a wonderful chemist. Henry, are you offended that we never gave you the prize? And he has reported to have said, oh no, I gave it to myself years ago. And what he was teaching is to say, look, it's not honors. You are what you are. You are what you are. And in fact, to even go further, to make it more personal, after I had been a doctor's degree in Harvard, and then a visiting professor at MIT, and then on the faculty at Stanford. And one time, Dad said to me, Hal, you've got a problem. You think that where you've been is who you are. What you are is what you can do. And my feeling is this, is that to this day, I remember him, what he could do. He was a worker like you could not imagine. And he cared more about other people than he cared about himself. I would just hope somehow, I've got my two little granddaughters here, they'll never remember, and these folks won't remember either. But I hope you remember that I described a man who loved people and loved God and loved chemistry. It was not a job to him. Oh, and by the way, I think in fairness, we also here with the University of Utah, I'll close this way, at the end of his life, at the end of his life, he was, I was called to go to the University of Utah hospital because they said he's dying. And so I rushed up to the university, and out of the hospital came 3 of his postdocs. And I said, oh, isn't that wonderful? They're very comforting me. I said, oh, no. We were here. He brought us a grant proposal for him to sign. And he signed it. And the University of Utah got that grant after he died. He had always said, if there's one chemist left at the university, I want to be the one. Well, after his death, he did something for this university that he loved and appreciated. The one other thing, a little more personal, is he was near the end of his life, and he was so far gone, he had bone cancer. And he said, I was with him through the night, through the evening that I left. And I was told that after I left, he somehow got out of bed. He could no longer walk, of course, with the bone cancer. Got out of bed and knelt down and was found in the morning on his knees. He had spent the night on his knees. And I don't know whether I don't know when I asked him, but I said, Dad, what were you praying about? And he said, I was praying to find out why I was suffering so. The bone cancer was terrible. And I said, did you get an answer to your prayer? He said, oh, yeah. God wants brave sons. So that what you have to understand is that you may have your own views about belief, but you'd have to know that that man, he had a feeling of being a child of God whose main joy was lifting other people. And chemistry happened to be he also loved the chemistry. And so he got to do the things he loved while he did the other thing, which is to lift people. And that's, by the way, that these honors that have been paid to him today are around that idea. And I love the picture. And by the way, I look at it and I remember being in the basement doing problems, and he's smiling down at me and saying, "Hal, let's develop it from first principles." And after a while, he finally said, "You know, I think you better get out of science and find something that you can think about when you don't have to think about it," which is what he did all the time. I'd like to. This is a little strange to do in a meeting like this, but I'll just say that I'm enough of a believer, by the way, that what he believed, I believe. And so it's very possible that he's probably in a seminar. In fact, when I became an apostle in the church, I wrote my first talk saying that I'm sure that my mother and father are listening, and I got a clear edge to take that out. They're busy. They may or not be listening. So that took it out. And so I'll do that right now. I'll say, if Dad's listening, I'd just like to say thank you. And on behalf of a lot of other people in this room, who would say thank you. And also, by the way, he would find a way to make you laugh, and because he was not. In fact, I can't think of a joke to end with, but I know that he would. Thank you. It's been wonderful to be with you. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for those really inspiring stories and words. I'd like to do one quick thing here. I want to recognize the sculptor. If I could have him just stand up and... Beautiful piece of work. And also Brett White, who actually cast then the statue down at the foundry. So. Henry really was a monumental figure in chemistry, and clearly has had a lasting legacy in a lot of different places. I want to thank everybody that came for being part of this truly special occasion. So we conclude the unveiling ceremony. We're almost done. I hope you'll take a moment to reflect really on the significance of what we've witnessed, and I think your words today really hammer that home. This statue, which now stands proudly in our department, is more than just a piece of art, right? It's a testament to Henry Eyring's enduring influence and will contribute to Henry Eyring's continued legacy within the department and the broader scientific community and the university. I should mention personally, my colleague, Professor Scott Anderson, and myself are the two faculty members that presently hold the honor of holding the Henry Eyring Presidential Endowed Chair in the Department of Chemistry, and we're forever grateful to have that designation. The endowed chair was established in 1982 and is among many of the outstanding contributions that Henry Eyring has made to the department and will contribute to support science for many years to come. The statue and Henry Eyring's legacy surely will inspire our students to dream big, challenge conventional thinking, and strive for excellence in all that they do. We are so grateful for everyone that participated in making this event possible. Thank you again to the Eyring family for your presence and support, to the Semnani family for making this memorial a reality, and to everyone that joined us today to honor a truly remarkable scientist and a truly inspiring individual. And he should have won the Nobel Prize. Please join us now for the reception to continue celebrating and sharing memories of Dr. Henry Eyring. Thanks again for coming.